The story begins in the 1970s with a girl named Judy from Long Beach, California. Judy was 17 years old, living a quiet and normal life with her father, Jim, and her mother, Louise, all residing in a large apartment with her grandparents. Judy was an introverted girl with not many friends, yet she didn't have problems like other teenagers. She loved collecting original dolls and antique furniture, making it her hobby to go out every summer holiday to buy them, after saving money specifically for this purpose. She spent most of her free time visiting exhibitions and antique shops, eventually amassing a collection of dolls. Judy's love for antiques transformed her home into a luxurious and historic salon. One day in 1970, Judy decided to sell one of her original dolls to an antique dealer in the city, a dealer she used to visit regularly. There, she found a new antique piece, a rocking chair carved in the shape of a latch named the Black Forest. The chair caught Judy's attention as she adored this type of antique and felt it would be a significant addition to her collection. Upon inquiring, she learned the chair was made in 1550 and, impressed by its age, immediately decided to purchase it. When Judy sat on the chair to try it out, she suddenly felt hands wrapping around her waist. She looked around frightened, but saw nothing. The hands she felt were invisible. Trying to convince herself she was imagining things, she attempted to get up, but something strange held her back. Judy struggled until suddenly, the invisible force released her, and she was propelled forward, finally free from the strange situation. However, this incident didn't deter Judy, and she was determined to buy the chair at any cost. Upon asking for the price, she discovered it was $1,500, a huge amount for her. Judy went home, pondering whether the chair was worth the price and recalling legends of haunted houses and objects moving on their own due to curses or spells. She laughed off her naive thoughts and went home, but the obsession with buying the chair continued to haunt her until she finally decided to purchase it. Judy negotiated with the dealer to buy the chair for $800, but the dealer refused and agreed she could pay the rest in installments. Judy agreed, and in August of the same year, she finally bought the chair. Her father and mother admired it and decided to place it in the living room. From that moment on, everything changed. After the chair became part of the room's furniture, the family noticed that despite the abundance of light in the room, there was darkness surrounding the chair's location. A halo of blackness hovered around it. It seemed to the observer that it was due to poor lighting, but in reality, anyone paying close attention would notice that the lights were sufficient to brightly illuminate the entire room. However, the family didn't pay much attention, and days passed until September 29th. While Judy was lying on the floor next to the chair, reading a book, she suddenly noticed a dense halo of darkness hovering around her, to the extent that she could no longer read the lines of the book. Everything around her was lit except for the spot she was in, as if that part of the room was detached from everything around it. Judy started rubbing her eyes, thinking she was tired from reading, until suddenly she felt the black halo encircling her. She lay there, completely helpless, unable to speak, move, or call for anyone. Time passed, and Judy was talking to herself in her mind, wondering what was happening and when it would end, but she started to feel that she would be trapped in this halo forever. Suddenly, the halo lifted and disappeared completely from around her, and everything returned to normal as if nothing had happened. Judy looked around, and everything was in its place. None of her family noticed anything, so she convinced herself she was imagining things and decided not to tell her father or mother. Days passed, and nothing strange happened until specifically a week after the first incident. Judy was trapped again in the same strange halo that surrounded her. This time, demonic yellow eyes appeared from the darkness, staring at Judy with malice and terror, causing her to collapse, trying to scream, but even her mouth wouldn't move. Everything in her was fixed in place despite the intense emotions inside her and her internal screams wanting to break free. Judy thought she would rather die than let the evil forces she felt take control of her. She started to imagine that the demonic eyes would swallow her and her life would end. After some time, the halo disappeared again and everything returned to normal. However, Judy decided to tell her father and mother what happened, but as usual, Judy's parents mocked her and assured her she was imagining things. Judy decided to try to convince herself of their words and went to sleep to rest from the strange experience she had gone through. After a while, Judy forgot what happened and decided not to get close to the chair again because it was clear that the horror stories she was reading had affected her. Days passed, and Judy resumed her normal life. She used to go out with her father and mother every week. Once, when Judy returned home and sat with her grandmother, who lived in a shared house with separate doors, the grandmother told her that every time they walked by, her dog would scratch at her door as if asking her to let him in. As soon as she opened the door, the dog would run quickly inside and hide as if it was afraid of something. Judy was puzzled and recalled that her dog had started to behave strangely for a while, refusing to enter the living room. Every time she called him, he would stand at the entrance of the room, barking as if he was saying he didn't want to enter. Judy thought about it for a while and realized that her dog hadn't entered the living room since the day the rocking chair was brought into the house and became part of it. Judy felt that there was indeed something strange about the chair that her dog could sense, as animals' senses and fears are often accurate. Later, specifically in October, Judy was spending time with her mother in the living room when they suddenly felt strange whines in the air. The lighting dimmed slightly, and a halo of darkness appeared around the chair. Judy was the only one who noticed what was happening. Suddenly, a group of bats emerged from the darkness, flying randomly around the room. Judy collapsed and started screaming, pointing out the bats flying over their heads to her mother, but her mother said she didn't see anything. Despite that, she confirmed that she felt the air moving strangely in different directions. Suddenly, the halo grew larger and larger, and all the bats flew into it until they disappeared completely. Judy collapsed from what happened, and from there she began to confirm that there were strange forces related to the rocking chair. The next day, a group of guests arrived at the house. While they were in the living room, they started to notice changes in the room's lighting, but neither Judy's father nor mother cared about the guests' comments, asserting that they didn't notice anything. One night, while everyone was asleep, there was a soft knocking on the wall. The dog was the first to wake up to the sound and started barking to wake the family. Suddenly, the knocking sound increased. The whole family woke up to the strange sound and the dog's barking. When they went downstairs, they found the dog standing in the corridor in front of the room, barking and looking at it. The family entered the room, and the knocking sound on the wall intensified to the point that they felt the house would collapse from the force of the knocking. The father approached until he reached the source of the sound, but as soon as he touched the wall, the sound disappeared and suddenly appeared in another place with the same intensity. The situation continued for more than an hour, with the father circling the house trying to understand the cause to no avail. Judy hugged her dog, wishing she could wake up from the frightening nightmare she was in, until finally the sound disappeared completely. Seconds later, there was a knock on the main door of the house. Judy ran to open the door, expecting to find her grandfather or grandmother, asking about the loud knocking that had occurred in the house, but there was no one at the door. Judy collapsed, and her mother tried to comfort her until she fell asleep. Shortly after, one day, Judy's mother entered the living room, but suddenly found the chair rocking by itself with movements impossible to be caused by the wind. Judy's mother looked around. There was no draft coming from anywhere. All the windows were closed. No one had been in the house since morning, and the grandparents were not at their home. Fear crept into Judy's mother's heart. She decided to approach the chair further and tried to stabilize it, but the chair was very heavy, as if someone was sitting on it. Judy's mother tried to steady it with force, but it felt as if someone was resisting her, as if insisting on continuing to rock. Something above the chair was invisible but tangible. Judy's mother decided to sit on the chair, and as soon as she did, the chair stopped moving completely. She tried to rock it, but it was very heavy, contrary to its design. Judy's mother collapsed from fear and quickly left the living room, thinking about her daughter's words. Days passed, specifically at the end of October. While Judy was in the kitchen helping to prepare dinner, she suddenly heard the sound of two men arguing. Judy was puzzled by the closeness of the sound and ran quickly towards the source, which was coming from the living room. As soon as she entered, she found the chair rocking violently, and the sound of the two men was very clear, but there was no one in the living room or around the entire house. Suddenly, she heard a loud laugh saying that it would soon be in her home. Judy collapsed and began to think about selling the cursed chair that was causing her nightmares while awake. After what Judy heard, she woke up every day feeling the breath of someone next to her on the bed. Judy decided that there was no solution other than to tell her son and mother about what was happening to her. However, the mother kept quiet after feeling that her daughter's words might be true. Judy's father completely refused to believe Judy's words and assured her she was imagining things. Judy was overwhelmed and finally decided to sell the chair, even for free, but feared what might happen to the new owner. She decided to ask Jim, the worker who did repairs in the house's garage, to burn it. Judy told him everything that happened after the chair entered the house. Jim laughed at Judy's words, took ownership of the chair, and moved it to the garage to decide what to do with it, considering keeping it for himself. While Jim was moving the chair, he mockingly spoke to it, telling it that he was going to burn it. Days later, as Jim was applying formica to the wall, the same strange halo appeared around the chair and expanded until it encompassed Jim, leaving him unable to move. Jim was puzzled by what was happening and tried to resist, but it was futile. Suddenly, while he was trapped, he saw flames coming out of the formica can, and the fire within it grew until it exploded. The halo then disappeared, and the paint splattered, covering Jim's legs with burnt formica. Jim was admitted to the hospital in critical condition and underwent months of treatment, including a series of skin graft operations after both his legs were disfigured. The chair returned to its original owner, Judy, who couldn't believe she was unable to get rid of the cursed chair forever. Judy's mother decided to seek help from a family friend, Nadine, known since childhood for seeing strange things that no one else could see and sensing supernatural phenomena. Nadine arrived at Judy's house and stood in front of the rocking chair. Suddenly, she saw a strange man, dressed as a priest, standing next to the chair, and on the chair, a corpulent man who appeared to be a ruler. Nadine and Judy decided to find out the chair's past and learned that the ruler who owned the chair had sentenced thousands of people to death in his era, being a cruel and tyrannical ruler. Nadine suggested that the family send a letter to Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan in San Francisco. Judy indeed sent a letter describing the rocking chair, and to her surprise, Anton offered $500 for the chair, showing eagerness to buy it. Judy felt relieved that she found someone willing to take the cursed chair off her hands, to the point that she forgot about her loss of the remaining money. Judy's father moved the chair to the garage until Anton's messenger could buy it. Days passed, and the story reached journalists. One of them decided to trace the chair's past from its first owner, a furniture dealer, who said he bought the chair from an old lady named Mrs. Conger. He displayed it in his store and sometimes sat on it until Judy started entering the store. After a while, the dealer noticed the chair rocking strangely, and after Judy offered to buy it, the chair continued to rock until he agreed to the amount Judy offered and arranged for the rest of the payment to be made in installments. The journalist decided to meet Mrs. Conger, but she was very upset when asked about the chair and refused to talk about it, as if hiding a strange secret. The journalist realized he wouldn't be able to learn anything about its history, but he guessed from its appearance that it was of Eastern origin. However, Nadine confirmed that it was from Northern Europe. During a period when Judy and her family were waiting for Anton LaVey's messenger, Judy's mother entered the garage to feed the cat and suddenly saw the chair in front of her, rocking for the second time. Judy's mother became frightened, quickly left the garage, and decided never to enter it again. Days later, the grandmother went to put food for the cat, but due to her daughter's story, she decided to bring the dog with her. As soon as she entered the garage, it started shaking violently, and suddenly she heard a loud bang. She quickly exited the garage and found a very heavy iron ladder that had been leaning against the house, fallen on the ground, which was the source of the sound. The grandmother was puzzled because there was no wind strong enough to move such a heavy ladder. After a while, without Anton sending anyone to buy the chair, one of Judy's friends visited her. After hearing the story of the chair, he mocked her and decided to sit on it, claiming he didn't feel anything. That same day, the young man had a car accident that nearly killed him. 2 days later, he had another severe accident and was hospitalized for a long period. From here, Judy's family decided they must get rid of the chair at any cost. Judy's father agreed with a local dealer to try to sell the chair, but after weeks of trying, the dealer failed. So, the father decided to summon a spiritual medium to analyze the cause of the chair's curse. Upon sitting on the chair, the medium revealed that the chair's owner had a harsh childhood lacking love and attention but tried to hide his past. As he grew up and had many children from different women, not knowing which children were his, and having grandchildren whose names he didn't know, he discovered his impotence, which increased his pain and suffering, turning him into a harsh and domineering man. When he sat on the chair, he decided to vent all his anger on those around him, using murder and torture. The analyst guessed that the ruler was Mongolian living in Northern Europe, and his spirit was still trying to be freed for unknown reasons. At that time, a journalist attending the analysis session started comparing Nadine's and the spiritual medium's words with the Russian Tsar Ivan, who was of Mongolian origin, ruling a European people, had a miserable childhood until he became a despised and physically deformed emperor hated by his people and was the owner of the rocking chair. Later, the journalist learned that the furniture dealer who tried to sell the chair quit his business and emigrated after claiming that since he sat on the chair, bad luck struck him to the extent that he couldn't sell anything for more than a month and left without leaving any address, which was unusual for an antique dealer with 20 years in the business. Finally, on June 3, 1971, Anton LaVey sent $500 and arranged for the chair to be shipped to San Francisco, where the chair settled without LaVey mentioning anything about it.